Hello, this is the RPG Crawler, and it is time once again for a product review. This time for a computer and console role-playing game, Class of Heroes 3 Remaster. A wizardry-like dungeon crawler that is currently available on Steam and consoles, the PS5 and the Switch, based on an older release. An entry into the Class of Heroes series. It was originally released in Japan on the PlayStation Portable and the PlayStation 3 back in 2010, with an English release at 2018 that was never released. Developed by Zero Div, it is currently published by P-Cube, who were kind enough to send me this review copy. Class of Heroes 3 Remastered is the newest in an entire series of remastered versions of the first-person dungeon crawlers, of course. I covered the first two games, and the first game in the series is very much derivative of the Wizardry series, while the second game started to set its own tone and identity. We'll have to see how the third game fares. This will be an overview of gameplay and my first impressions primarily, without going into any plot details, so if you're looking for a rundown of the entire plot, I'm afraid you'll have to look elsewhere. Also of note is that while I had a fair amount of experience with the original version of the first game in the series, and at least some experience with the second game, I have no prior experience with this third game, so it's as new to me as it is to many in the West. The game opens with an intro cinematic, and then you can start a new game with a choice from 3 different schools. There's the Draken Academy, the Prekiana Institute, the Takachinho College, and there is no real indication in-game as to which one does, but apparently it not only affects the uniform you wear, but each follows its own story, and they're basically difficulty mode selections, since other schools start you in different areas with different challenges. I went with the Draken to start this particular playthrough. As always, the game begins with an introduction that walks you through the features of the Academy, which serves as your home base. Not only at first, but further in you can get access to other academies as well. Character creation takes place in the staff room, where you can organize your party, enroll new students, browse existing students, check out their courses, expel a student, and report in on various quests involving this location. Character creation allows you to pick a name, a race, and a gender. The races are similar to prior entries in the series, with human, elf, dwarf, gnome, which were called Erdgeists in 2, Kulaz, which was once halfling, fairy, Felper, Bahamut, which also used to be called Drakes, Diablos, and Celestias. You can then pick your character's appearance, modifying between the various pose types, picking a hairstyle, hair color, and a voice. You then select a subject of study. This is essentially your character's starting class. The number of classes in Heroes 3 is much larger than in prior entries in the series, and many may be locked until later events or can only be taken in certain schools or other locations. Classes not only grant access to certain abilities and magic, but govern your stat growth as you level up. Some classes may be locked to specific races as well. Your ability scores include power, that functions as physical strength, intelligence, mind, vitality, agility, and luck. These are very similar to abilities presented in prior entries into the series, although the names may have been changed. You may assign your starting bonus points to these as you will. Notably, as is usual in this series, and of course the one it was derived from, bonus points are randomly determined in a way very similar to the old Wizardry games. You can then simply hop back and forth during initial character enrollment to re-randomize the bonus points until you get a total you are satisfied with. Other buildings are introduced during the introduction tour as well, and some may combine different facilities within one building. There's the dorms, tech building that contains the store and the lab, infirmary, the main building that contains the staff room and classrooms, and the library. In more detail, the dorm offers another chance to organize the party, as well as the ability to rest between adventures and store loot and items that you may leave for later. The store allows you to buy and sell gear and items, as well as to purify curses from items that you haven't equipped yet. The laboratory is where the alchemy crafting system operates in the game. Alchemy allows you to disassemble existing items from materials, combine materials into new items, and upgrade existing items. There's also a recipe book that holds all of the recipes that you've discovered or purchased. The Infirmary allows you to treat status effects, uncursed gear that has been equipped, and reincarnate, which effectively resets a character's level to 1 while boosting their stats for another go-round. The library serves as the quest board, allowing you to take quests from the notice board as well as to review the records of accomplishments made during gameplay. Finally, there's the gates, where you can head out into the world to explore. Most of this is done in the forms of dungeons, with even wilderness areas described as such. You can also select to resume parties that you've left out, either garrisoned in various locations, as well as select additional locations on the world map once they have been unlocked. I should also note that from any part of this, you can access a submenu that allows you to save the game, change various game options, and other useful utility actions. Before moving on to exploration and combat, it should be noted as well that there's a compatibility system that allows you to set whether party members like or dislike one another. This may unlock additional skills to use in battle, both on the like and the dislike sides, as well as when you select multiple characters to dislike or like the same ones. This is done through one of several options you can access during exploration. In fact, there's 3 pages of options in the aforementioned submenu that you can access everywhere, including reviewing things like stats, equipment, spells, changing the party formation, changing compatibility, changing courses of those students back in school, reviewing your quests, changing the overall game settings such as graphics and audio, saving the game, modifying controls, returning to the title screen, and quitting the game entirely. Once within a dungeon or wilderness area, exploration is presented in a classic, grid-based first-person view, with your party arranged on all sides by default. Navigation takes place with single steps and 90-degree turns, as is typical for the genre, although you can also strafe, sidestep, as any first-person grid crawler might do in recent memory. Treasure chests, events, and area transitions are indicated in the first-person view, even if some are only indicated by abstract icons. Areas may consist of several maps interconnected with one another. There's the ability to view a map and auto-travel around upon it, but only if you purchase the map of that particular area at a shop. Notably, this doesn't actually fill in the map until you've explored it, it simply allows you to engage the auto-map. You can access the same submenus to manage inventory and cast spells as well as save that you can in other places of the game, and I'll stop mentioning it here. While wandering within the labyrinth, you encounter various enemies, and these may be either random or planned, but generally are not marked on the screen before encountering them. When a combat encounter happens, the enemies are divided into groups and ranks, and may be identified or unidentified. Your party is likewise divided into front and rear ranks. These may limit what abilities and attacks may be available and who you can target with them. For instance, someone in the rear rank must be using a ranged weapon to attack basically anyone. Monsters in rear ranks may be unable to attack you without some sort of special ability or some sort of reach. Different types of monster groups may share the same rank, so long as there is room, so I believe this is a little bit different. At the start of each round, you are given an overall option to fight, to run, or to change the party formation. Choosing to run may allow you to escape, but it is not guaranteed, in fact far from it. Changing the formation may be useful depending on what you're facing, and selecting Fight allows you to set each party member's commands for that particular round. During a round, a character may attack, use an item, use a skill, use magic, or defend. Attack targeting will depend on the weapon the character is using, as I mentioned before, and skills can include special racial abilities, class skills, as well as skills gained through party affinity. These usually require some degree of MP to use as well. Certain skills, especially those unlocked due to affinities, may also trigger a timed button minigame to execute them correctly. Characters act in order of their initiative, which I presume is adjusted by their agility. Occasionally, party members may join others' attacks. I believe this is based on affinity level or their class's ability, but I wasn't actually able to figure it out just by watching it. Once enemies are defeated, you gain experience, progress in your courses or classes, which seem to be tracked differently from your experience level. You can also gain class-related skills without actually leveling up, for instance. You usually gain some loot as well, and this loot may take the form of items, but is more usually in the form of crafting materials and gold. Occasionally, a chest may appear as well. Whether as part of some loot or found on the map by itself, chests offer a few options. First, you may check for traps. Anyone may check, although certain courses will certainly have an easier time of checking successfully. You may also cast the Searcher spell, which identifies traps through magic. You may use the Unlock ability or spell to remove a trap automatically, and failing that, anyone may attempt to disarm a trap. You must select which trap you think the chest has in order to maximize your chances. You may also either just open the chest and accept whatever consequences happen, or leave without even trying to open it at all. Once you proceed through the various labyrinths, you will come upon connecting settlements as well. Some of these will be other schools that offer a similar experience to whatever school you chose to start with, but most will actually be smaller settlements that offer a more limited series of options, generally an inn, a store, or other subset of whatever you'd find in one of the main schools. These may offer materials or items unavailable in other settlements, though. You may also garrison characters at a settlement that can be resumed later. It can be helpful to do so in order to station parties in different areas of the game, especially if you're playing with a maniac option that may result in party loss and the need to send a rescue party in to recover the bodies for revival. Graphically, Class of Heroes 3 Remastered is very much in line with the entries that came before, with a crisp, colorful anime style for characters, a clean, if a little bit cluttered at times, interface, and more varied outside terrain that is more detailed than in prior entries. This is mostly a good thing, although I admit it sometimes made it difficult for me to identify the borders of the grid-based step mapping, which may result in having to put up with the sounds of your party colliding with the wall and yelping in pain. Fortunately, you can in fact turn the sound off there. The voices within the game, although they may be cute at first, actually honestly became a little grating for me, so I may end up muting them from time to time, but usually I leave them on anyway. It is pretty par for cute anime aesthetic style games, so I can't really complain too much about that. Anyway, what systems were retained are more streamlined, and honestly I found them to be more useful. The alchemy system seemed a little bit easier to get off the ground with than in the prior entries in the series, especially Class of Heroes 2, while the course management system allowed for decent customization of what skills a character could acquire. The character affinity system was very different from what appeared in prior Class of Heroes offerings, and while it seemed a little clunky, I do appreciate the effort it took to make at least a straightforward interface, especially with the ability to assign specific relationships between individual characters on a team without necessarily just having to discover them through play, and then you can reassign them where necessary. One final note before I go into my overall impression of the game regarding the localization. When I covered Class of Heroes 1 and 2 Remasters, I found that localization was passable, but I had noticed a certain, shall we say, set of choices regarding changes to characterizations that I wasn't sure were necessary, especially in the second game. With Class of Heroes 3 Remastered, I noticed that the translation overall was a little bit rougher. Everything from grammatical errors to spell names not quite sticking to common schema were present. I have had, of course, no experience with the original Class of Heroes 3, so I cannot say whether this is new to the remaster or not. What I do know is there really didn't seem to be any weird inserts present in the Class of Heroes 3 remaster, or at least if there were, they were subtle enough that I really didn't notice them. Personally, I actually kind of like it better simply because it gives more of an impression of playing a localized game rather than what somebody thought they wanted to say with it. Anyway, overall, what do I think about Class of Heroes 3 Remastered? As I said, I don't have any experience with the original game. I can't attest to any of the actual remaster qualities of the game, but standing on its own merits, just as itself, it is a fun and mostly competent wizardry-like dungeon crawler with an iterative improvement on its predecessors in very many ways. Although it doesn't do quite so much to stand out as the second entry did. The second entry served as pretty much a break from the prior very much wizardry-based class system and all that. This one iterates on that but doesn't just go way out there. If you enjoyed the gameplay of the first two games, or in general are a fan of any wizardry-like dungeon crawler, Class of Heroes 3 Remastered offers more of the same, with some basic iterations, as I said, on the formula of the first games. This is the first official run of this game for Western audiences. Fans of the series who haven't played it yet may want to take a look just to complete the series. If you are growing tired of them, however, then this one's probably not going to do anything to rekindle a desire to play the series. It's just not that outstanding enough to say, oh, I have to come back with it if you already were growing tired of the first two. Personally, I enjoy these sorts of games. I enjoy all of the original wizardries and many of the Japanese wizardries, and pretty much the prior two entries in the Class of Heroes series follow that same tradition. I like to go in playing games I've already finished to try out new party members and different courses on those two, and I'm honestly looking forward to doing the same with the third one. I honestly don't focus on the story too much in these sorts of games, so for me this definitely seemed worth looking into. I will admit, if I hadn't been given the review copy, I probably would have waited until I found it on sale or with a bundle, but still, it has been a fun little romp, and it is worth at least taking a look at for fans of the genre. And on that note, I'm going to wrap things up here. This has been the RPG Crawler with Class of Heroes 3 Remastered. Really kind of a quick review and first look rather than an in-depth review. If you like what you've seen, remember to leave a like. I will leave a link to where you can pick this up below. Until next time, take care and goodbye.
And if you are still watching, I would like to take the opportunity to thank my supporters, the top tiers of which are listed on the screen, without whose support I would not have been able to offer the variety of content that I have on this channel throughout the years. If you're feeling particularly generous and would like to join them, you can support the channel. There are a variety of options to do so. I have a Patreon, a Subscribestar, as well as channel memberships enabled. If you are not in a position to contribute, simply leaving a like, a comment, or sharing my videos are all wonderful ways to help the channel grow without spending a dime, and are all greatly appreciated.